Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Thank you for this bill, Madam Chair. I know I've told you that personally, but I want to publicly thank you for this bill. I've made no, I've been unafraid to point out that a lot of the proposals that were on the table when it came to the tax portion of the budget from the governor's office, that there were severe targeting of northern Minnesota, whether it was the PILT targets for public land payments to northern counties in particular, whether it was Sustainable Forest Incentive Act funding to protect our forests, protect our climate, ensure our forestry industry was strong, whether it was AIS, our aquatic invasive species, which honestly predominantly protects northern Minnesota lakes, because those are the ones that still don't have the invasive species, or SWCD funding, all of those types of things. And so, Madam Chair, what I'm really, really pleased with, I think most with this bill, is that we were able to fight back against those cuts. We have protected northern Minnesota and made sure that we were not the targets of those cuts. Now, there are still cuts in here, but I think making sure that it didn't target one region over another was a really important piece that I wanted to make sure I voiced early on, and I'm pleased that this bill does that. Getting to the very positive parts of this bill, and I love the theme that you've come up with on embracing the modern economy. You know, I've talked a lot about the crisis that we face in EMS and rural ambulance, and Senator Rarick brought a bill, I think it was last year as well, that is looking at how we can incentivize our small communities in particular to come together to regionalize their fire services and their ambulance services. This is really important because while there are struggles with federal reimbursement levels, workforce, the distances in rural communities, what we can do is provide them aid at the state level, but we can also incentivize our rural communities to come together, to bring their licenses together to say, hey, maybe there's a different way to do this. And if you do it a different way, the state is going to incentivize you by providing an aid to help you do that. It's a tough conversation to go to your local communities and say, you might have to give up your license. Why don't you coordinate with other communities? But if we bring a carrot to the table and say you're going to have an aid to do it, like we do for LGA and CPA for communities, I think that's going to help them get there and start thinking about regionalizing ambulance services. The thing I'm most pleased in this bill is that we are modernizing how we fund schools, particularly our rural schools. There was a real disservice that happened, and I don't want to blame anybody that was involved, but in 2001, they made the decision to pull seasonal recreation properties away from rural school districts and send it to the state. I don't know how that happens, but it is an inequity, and we talk a lot about inequity, right? You hear those buzzwords, especially on my side of the aisle. What we don't talk enough about is the inequities in rural communities. And this was a direct cost shift away from rural schools, sending it to the state level. So what we've done is come up with a pretty unique way that we can create an aid back to those school districts that have a lot of cabins and wealthy, frankly, properties on their lakes, and make sure that they get a portion back for their school districts. This is going to have a profound effect on school districts that have maybe 30, 40, 50% of their properties as second homes. Think about that. If your community has 50% of the homes not even homesteaded, those property taxes should go to local schools. It's so simple that it's maddening. So I'm really glad that we have this provision in the bill. Helium. We have found the largest, most concentrated helium deposit in the world in northern Minnesota. Once again, northern Minnesota can provide the minerals that we need to advance a modern economy. And I get to be part of creating a tax structure that benefits local communities. I didn't think as a new Iron Range legislator that I would get the chance to create an entirely new framework for minerals, but here I am having it in the tax bill in the Senate. That's a pretty special thing, and Madam Chair, I appreciate you including that in this bill. It's going to go a long way to support our local communities, and we're taking a pretty profound step in making sure that tribes are part of the process, which I think is really important as well. Small resorts. We talked about small resorts. I know I'm filibustering, Madam Chair, but there's a lot in this bill.
I love it.
Small resorts. You know, we heard really impassioned speeches from folks, and I talked about my experience. My grandfather bought a resort cabin, refurbished it, but we continue to this day to live next to a local resort, family-owned resort on Blanche Lake in Otter Tail County. And to watch those families get to experience the outdoors that Minnesota has every single year, create those friendships, and we're modernizing the way that we tax those resorts to make sure that they can continue to be family owned. That's another really special thing I think that we're doing in this bill. I don't want to stomp on Senator Putnam's great work that he's done in the Ag Committee, but we're doing a lot for agriculture in this bill, and I know he had to step away for Veterans Conference Committee, but we're doing a lot with agriculture homestead credits and beginning farmers, helping our farmers in a modern economy get started and try to keep family farmers alive. So I think that's a great thing. And then, of course, we've talked about it a lot, but sustainable aviation fuel, helping our ag sector, helping our airline and aerospace industry. All of those, I think, could make Minnesota really a leader for the modern economy. I want to very briefly talk about the social media tax. I mentioned in committee about the fact that in northern Minnesota, we tax minerals, right? When you take from us, when you extract from us, we tax it and help support local communities. And that's what the social media tax is. It is modernizing the way that we do taxes on businesses that extract things from us. In a digital economy, what these companies are doing is they are extracting and mining our personal data at no cost and then using it to profit off of us. It's not necessarily an innately bad thing, but we should tax it. We should make sure that they are paying us back for taking our value. I think it's a really simple concept, and I'm really proud that we were able to keep it in the Senate bill. I think going to conference, I want to hear the argument against that. I want to hear how people can defend not making the 14 wealthiest companies in the world to pay for the data that they're taking from us. It's something that I think Minnesota could lead the way on. I want to talk a little bit about data centers, something that's been a big debate this session. In this bill, we are keeping the data center provision, and I know that there are a lot of stakeholders at the table, from the environmental stakeholder groups, from the building trades, from folks that want to make sure that Minnesota is a headquarter for tech companies. Again, we just got done talking about how they should pay their fair share. We also should be a place where they can be incentivized to build, create jobs, and we're all going to use this technology, so let's do it right here in Minnesota, where we have the environmental standards and the labor standards that we need in order to do it right. So I just want to say, please know that those conversations are ongoing, that we are working with all the stakeholders to hopefully come up with a deal that can work with everybody, but we had to have it in the bill so that we can move those conversations forward. And now I get to a couple of my concerns. And I will confirm what Senator Nelson was talking about with cannabis. When we were moving forward with the cannabis bill in 2023, I told folks that I would support it if our local governments got a piece of the proceeds. And I was really adamant about that, because our local governments take on much of the enforcement that comes with creating a new recreation industry. And to take that away from our local governments, I think, is a really tough pill to swallow after the fact that we have legalized this new industry. And so I really take concern with that. And Madam Chair, I didn't bring an amendment today, but I want to start socializing this idea. I think we should raise the tax on cannabis. We should raise the tax. We are far below what other states tax cannabis, and I think there is an opportunity here for us to have a win-win. Let's increase the tax marginally on cannabis, and let's make sure that our local governments get that piece of that tax, because we can't take this away from them right now. So I hope that we can keep those conversations going into conference. Again, I didn't bring an amendment, but I want to start telling people, why don't we make the common sense decision to increase the tax and make sure that our local governments don't get their cut taken from them. LGA and CPA. This is something that Senator Klein, I believe Senator Putnam was on it as well, myself. This matters a lot. And it matters for everybody from Minneapolis and Duluth to some of the most rural and small communities that I represent. But what's really, I think, unique to point out is that in our rural communities in particular, we don't have the shifts that we can make onto businesses and industry like other communities do. So when we cut LGA and CPA, what that does is it passes on to property tax owners far more than other suburban and urban communities. And these are predominantly folks, if you don't know, rural communities are usually older. So these are folks that are, have a little bit more restrictions on their income, are perhaps been in their home for a long time and can't take on those additional property taxes. So I understand the need for everyone to be a part of the difficult decisions that we need to make, but it is something that I feel very passionate about, and I'm hopeful that we can keep the conversation going on those two issues, because I think with the other cuts that are being made in human services, and with reimbursement rates and some of those things, we're going to have other effects on our local governments and counties, and to add this on top of it is another difficult pill to swallow. Lastly, I want to talk about the film tax credit. We are theming this bill on embracing a modern economy. And I think one of the ways that Minnesota has modernized our economy is by embracing and trying to enhance the film industry in Minnesota. I think there is a true opportunity for Minnesota to be a leader in this industry. The reason is because we have so many diverse landscapes. I mean, you come up to my district, you feel like you're in a different country. I mean, I hope everybody in here has been to the North Shore and the Boundary Waters, but if you haven't, please, God, get up there because it's incredible. But think about the filming that we could do there in downtown Minneapolis, on our farms, in our regional hubs and at our colleges. There is so much opportunity to showcase what Minnesota brings for the film industry, and having this credit is a really, really critical part of it. I just want to say that I recently visited Chisholm, where they are operating a lot of the work that they're doing with the film tax credit. And to see the young people, to see the folks from Hollywood come to the Iron Range and work with our young people to inspire them to a new industry. I mean, these are kids on the Iron Range who, frankly, know a lot about mining and timber, but they don't know about Hollywood. And they don't know about the film industry and new opportunities. We are providing that by making sure that there's a tax credit that gives them that exposure, gives them those opportunities. So it saddens me to see this cut. However, I also know that we are making really difficult decisions, and we're cutting nursing home funding and other bills. We're cutting healthcare funding. We're cutting local governments and increasing property taxes for seniors and everyone. But I really think if we want to embrace the modern economy, one way we can do that can grow the economy, grow the pie, provide new opportunities, and make Minnesota a leader in this country is by maintaining that film tax credit. So I know we're not getting rid of it entirely, but I really hope as we go into conference committee that we can keep the conversation going and try to protect that film credit and maybe enhance it a little bit. So, Madam Chair, with that, I like the bill. I love embracing the modern economy. Let's keep doing it. Thank you.